pure darkness. But then you realize it's because your eyes are closed. You open them. Pure darkness. You're strapped in a chair, legs, arms, and torso. Your heart begins to race. A moment passes and you are now looking down the barrel of a Remington 12-gauge shotgun. You understand at once that your universe has labored clanking to this moment. The pull of a trigger, the annihilation of yourself, a function of the high-precision engineering concealed by its nickel plating. There are weapons of low quality. They are out there. Metal strikes metal, yet the mechanical orchestra fails to produce effect. But in this case, all is right and situated as it should be, and a big fucking shit of metal gets blown through your fucking skull, and basically you're fucked. And that is what it's like to watch a good movie.
Did you just write the first chunk of that just now?
I wrote it earlier, and I hope you appreciated the Judge on War reference.
Yeah, it was good.
That was good, yeah.
I enjoyed it. That was great.
Thank you, guys.
That was a good little...
And that's our song. Thank you, Steven. We are back. We're always back. It was over, and now we're back. And I bet you're wondering, please tell us, what movie did you watch? We didn't watch any movies. We've been practicing abstinence, holding in that energy, that cinematic energy.
Prove your
Yeah. But we are here to talk
the
about
spiritual equivalent to like testicles and like, you know, holding in your...
Yeah. You've got two balls. They're called your eyes, eyeballs.
Yeah, your eyeballs.
And you're saving them for something important.
Yeah, marriage.
But we are here to talk about something really important. Something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, and
something that none of us are prepared for.
Something that none of us are prepared for in the kind of like emotional sense. In the material sense, although it sounds now like we're sort of just riffing and saying whatever, we're about to get into a 5-person 600-page script of
Knife
prepped
fight.
material for this topic, knife fight.
A
But the
knife
question
fight in
remains,
the mud.
what are we talking about?
So what makes an evil movie? Okay. And, you know, does such a thing even exist? In this essay, I will... No.
Terrible.
So we've all talked a lot and sort of referenced, sort of in passing, this movie's evil, that movie's evil, and the viewer's sitting there thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? Right? Evil movie, I'm not picking up what you're throwing down. So
Yeah, if I can chime in a little bit.
Here's my basic template for
guess
what
I can.
is... Go ahead.
I totally understand what you're saying, Jacob, and I've experienced this a lot in my own personal life, where I will say to people, that movie's evil, this movie's evil, and it's caused problems in my relationships. So I would love to get some help with this.
And now you can. So I'm going to...
Fucking Google Gemini conversation.
All right, Elsewhere, maybe start over.
Yeah, okay, let's just keep doing
I
the
think
starts.
there's basically two components, or two different versions, you might say, that make an evil film. One type of evil film, or one component of an evil film
Wait,
is...
are these types or ingredients?
Just shut the fuck up and let him fucking talk. Everyone fucking shut up.
There's-
Oh my god. We've got nowhere. Alright, Jacob, please, Jacob.
I think there's two ingredients. There's two. Okay, there's two components, right? And they could also be construed as types, right? So one of them.
So okay, sorry. There's
Stop laughing. Let him finish.
Okay, sorry. There's two. So there's two
Let him
wolves
finish.
inside of you.
He's getting to it.
Okay, I'm done.
So there's two wolves.
Okay, I think one component is like emotional manipulation, and specifically because obviously all film manipulates the viewer, right? It's a totally contrived medium. What you're watching isn't real, right? So you're always being manipulated in part. But it's a very specific type of manipulation. You know, either sort of puts bad ideas in the viewer's head, and then I think basically the other type of evil film, sort of like it's more like sentimental or something, but it's sort of like I get the vibe that the director has some sort of compulsion to just show the viewer something that you would actually perceive in real life as like evil or bad, like towards no specific end, or like it's not serving any sort of moral instruction or trying to sort of analyze it to maybe draw out any like symbolic significance or like weird inverted sense of beauty. It's like, no, I just really fucking love fucked up stuff, and like you're gonna watch this fucked up shit because I'm fucked up.
Yeah.
I really disagree with a lot of this. The first part, right, the manipulation point, right, you sort of elaborate that every film is about manipulation, but the kind that you're worried about is the kind that puts bad ideas in your head. So, like, call that ingredient puts bad ideas in your head. And 2 is just, like, reveling in ugliness.
Yeah.
Right. But is it about the ugliness, or is it about the perceived intent of the film to revel in it? Right. Because there's like, right. I imagine that's like the real operative thing, because there are films we love that are not evil that demonstrate or show us extreme ugliness. Right. But that's okay, because it comes from a good place. I don't know. I just have like a totally different sense, I feel like, and maybe you can bridge the gap, but I would say in general, there are two kinds of evil film. There's the kind that, honestly, either intentionally or unintentionally, and I don't want to get caught up in what that means, intention, but it counteracts my love of life, so it makes me love life less. Or 2, has a negative material effect on the world. But this is the kind of evil film that I don't really care about much. Like, that's like the more colloquial, casual evil film. We think About Time, like that's not an evil film. It's some studio put together an amazing film, and little did they know it was going to ruin the lives of millions of people. Versus something that is truly evil. Like, is there something that we totally get behind as like the perfect evil example?
Well,
I'm not sure.
I think about Time is like one of the most like, and when I conceptualize an evil movie, About Time is one of the most quintessentially evil movies I could think of, because I think it's evil in like a really deep way, right? So like, for example, Troy, you were talking about how like they make you like not love life or something, right? They're like anti-life. And the thing is that About Time, I think, is vaguely pro-life. I can see the argument that it's not, but I'm just like, I think on a like a very pedestrian, very like surface level, like it is
It's extremely pro-life.
yeah, it's gearing you towards pro-life. In the same way that, like, this movie that we've talked about that we hated a lot before was Everything Everywhere All at Once, is also, I think, in its end, attempting to be pro-life. But I think what makes both of those movies so fucking evil is that, like, they hit you with giga vomit about, like, the way life is, and just sort of, like, moralizing directly to your face, and giving you like nuclear fucking vomit about shit that is just like wrong. And if you were to like, let's say, like follow its advice, it is going to just like fuck you up, right? So like in Everything Everywhere All at Once, its quintessential message is be kind. Like, that's wrong. That is a wrong thing to think. That is wrong. And to
wrong thing.
and
You've
to
committed
and
wrong thing.
yeah, it's wrong. You're wrong.
They're coming to your house.
Like, and then
Well,
we can talk all about how it's wrong, but like it's wrong. And the reason is so evil is because if it didn't tell you it explicitly, it couldn't convince you that it was right. There make sense?
Well,
Like if a movie done well makes it feel as though when you come to the conclusion, when you come to the end of it, as if there could be no other right way, and you just feel it and you know, it's almost like you came to the conclusion yourself, right? You're like, holy shit, like something's just been revealed to me, you know? But if you fucking watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, like you don't get there unless they tell you. In the same vein as About Time, I forget it's like quintessential fucking vomit at the end. But go ahead.
Well, I think I am seeing what you're saying about Everything Everywhere. I think with About Time, it's not putting forward a worldview that's in contradiction to anything most of its audience thinks. It's like explicitly positive, optimistic, etc. I feel like its real evil is in like the object of the film and how well it works as a function of how little its creators think of its audience. It like, I don't know. It's like a bug trap. And
do you think that applies to other mediums besides film?
Less so,
like,
but yeah.
Like music? Like music?
Yeah, music would probably be another good example, especially if you can like, I mean, I always think about time as like something made up in a lab, you know, by AI and machines and statistics and like no artistry at all. But when they finish building the product, imagine it's like a painting, and all the scientists gather and they say, okay, we have a 86% chance that if someone looks at it for 3 seconds or longer from a 5 feet view, they will cry. And like if someone looks at this for 20 minutes, well, upside down, they will miss their father. And like it's this like statistical creation that like works. And then not only that, but it puts like super bad ideas in the heads of its audience via mechanics, like via an obvious and provable dishonesty. Like the film doesn't even believe in itself.
well,
It only operates under its like
so maybe
entertainment requirements.
Okay. I think that is a super interesting idea, but also like, could you qualify more like what specifically about the movie?
Yeah, just like a
gives you
light
this sense of
example.
confidence about it. It's this disconnect between, you know, the people creating it or making it for, and what people feel about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I can demonstrate, if you want an example of like extremely obvious dishonesty, I can give that. I can also give, okay, extreme dishonesty. You've got a movie about a guy who can time travel, right? And we'll avoid all the, like, there are a million things about this movie I could talk about, but the obvious one is he can time travel. He creates for himself this perfect fantasy life via that mechanism. In the end, his grand knowledge and understanding and his advice to the audience is that actually the best way to live is to never time travel at all. This is it. Just he as a character from the studio's view cannot say anything else, and it's so obvious that if you can time travel, the best way to live is not to not time travel. Yeah. And he has demonstrated his perfect life that the audience loves, and he is engineered so well to be so relatable to the average, you know, millennial Redditor that it rules time traveling. So it's like the film can't tell you anything else, so it has to say, actually, it turns out greatest wisdom, don't time travel. That if you really want a perfect life, don't do it.
Okay, wait. I don't want to. It's been a minute since I've seen About Time, but isn't like part of it like this level of dishonesty that he feels like within doing, like living like every day 3 times or something? No.
His dad, in the end of the movie, they're like summarizing the important findings and knowledge and wisdom. And his dad's secret to him, the secret to living the best life, was to live each day only twice. Once for real, and then the second one so you can really smell the roses and appreciate it. But then he takes it one step further and learns the ultimate truth to happiness is to not time travel ever.
And to smell the roses while you're there, right?
Yeah, you got to smell it for real the whole time.
Yeah, and there is he doesn't ever express that he's felt bad. about time
No,
travel.
yeah, but he's never like torn up about the obvious ethical problems of his life.
Okay, yeah, for sure. But
Tricked his
also-
wife into marrying him. Like, I mean, the whole whatever. But
yeah.
That's,
of
like,
course,
more
all that
trivial.
stuff. But like to this point in particular, it seems that an important qualification for how you're measuring the film, though, is in you're framing it within a certain frame and you're taking it by a certain set of rules that I assume you're deriving from what the film presents itself as the own stage that it's on, right? Because like I feel like this is kind of like, what makes a certain movie that like is trying to make, a really serious political point or something, and then it just like kind of half-asses it, and then but it was also like if they didn't try to stage it as such and like hold up its own measuring stick that like hand you the measuring stick to measure it by. Well, I guess my question that then you wouldn't have perceived it as being like a bad movie, because it's just like, okay, well, they had this like little political stuff that didn't work out, but fucking who cares? The rest of it's great.
yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like with the About Time, it's like you do think, I mean, I guess like an important aspect of this whole evil thing is like, right, if you told the same sort of story on a different scale and framed it in the right way as more, what's the right word, like almost like parable like or something, right? And it's more of like, it's like you're not taking the universe's mechanics seriously or something like that as like reality, like you would consider it differently, right?
I got a little lost on the second part. I thought that you were saying that, like, am I measuring it by a stick other than its own? Because in some sense, I mean, it's a masterpiece. It's the greatest rom-com ever made. And I love it.
Okay.
And I cry every time.
Okay. But
Am I totally missing what you're saying? I got lost as soon as you're talking about like this alternate.
Basically, like the way in which it is evil, the message that it ends with, right? The sentiment is something that you'd agree with, like, regardless of how you got there. It's like you'd get there a different way, correct?
No.
Like of this sort of.
No, I disagree with its conclusion.
Its conclusion is not you shouldn't time travel.
It is
my point. No. My point is that it's not. That's not the point. The point is
smell the roses.
Like smell the roses, right? That's my point. Is that but the framing you're saying is making it so that you feel that the point is you shouldn't time travel.
No.
This is the correct
but it's still bullshit. It doesn't really
you
matter.
should smell the roses
like,
1,000,000 times. Live a day 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, well, it's like how they arrived at that conclusion. First of all, smell the roses is bullshit. Let's get that
smell
straight.
The roses is cool.
No,
smell the roses is cool.
No,
Smell the
that's
roses-
bullcrap. Let's get that straight first.
No,
let him shut up for a second.
That's fucking bullshit. Right. That is wrong. Don't fucking at me with smell the roses, okay? I'm fucking.
Why don't you try getting a hobby?
I'm fucking stressed, okay?
Touch grass.
Everything's falling apart. I'm dying. You're dying. And do you know who's not dying? Is this fucking British twink. He's not dying because he gets to live forever, reliving days over and over again. And this guy gets to tell me to smell the roses? Fuck you, you're wrong. Okay? It's not true. It's not true. And the only way you could even come up with that conclusion of smelling the roses equals good is if you could just fucking fuck off forever and just try time travel.
Wait, but time out. Because Wings of Desire is about giving up immortality to go
smell the roses.
Yeah, exactly.
And it feels totally justified and right.
I want to be on record as agreeing with Smell the Roses, but in the movie it's tried as hell and super evil and corrupt. But Smell the Roses is cool.
I know, but you're okay. You're just like you list all of these things about it's evil and corrupt and tried as hell. But I guess my point that I'm trying to make is that like there is like an essential quality to what's making that movie evil, which is by this like yardstick that it's giving you or something, or like, I mean, like the Wings of Desire comparison. I guess, I don't know, I just feel like there may be more to explore that like might actually get into the kind of more fundamental thing that is this aspect of framing, because it isn't necessarily like the moral itself. It's
it's the deception.
You're taking serious. Okay, it's the deception.
It's it's the fact that the movie obviously hates you and wants you dead. and you will love it. And you will come to think of it as very illuminating as to what is love, what is your life, and you will come to have a view of love that is so wrong and counterproductive. But I don't want to get too stuck in this movie because we have to do a whole part on this movie, and it's the uninteresting case. I feel like we should be talking about like funny games and stuff, yeah, or Seventh Continent or whatever, like stuff that's like serious
evil bait,
serious evil stuff. Have we not seen a single movie where like this is evil?
Is Perks of Being a Wallflower evil?
Oh, haven't seen in a long time, but I bet it is. But I don't know.
Is there any coming of age film does not strike you as probably evil?
I'm pulling up a list here.
One that you're saying, is there one that doesn't?
We could also
right. If you reflect back.
Yeah, I mean, but I think I feel like these are all going to be, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like these are going to be cases of like what's bad about them is the bad ideas and bad worldviews that they sell their audience on.
Right. So I want to distinguish that.
Dead Poet Society.
Yeah. I feel like there's there's definitely an aspect to. Yeah, I feel like with the coming of age thing, like something that kind of strikes you, or at least like strikes me immediately, is sort of like with something like 500 Days of Summer is like you're a teenager and it's like there is sort of you do kind of measure it through a lens of being a teenager and having this kind of formative aspect to your personality and how you see the world, and then getting like you encounter this thing that skews the way that you see things and like relate to it, this thing that is like reaching out and is so well made to reach out to you specifically and kind of use your I don't know, it's almost like this like marketing demographic thing where it's like you fit the profile of a certain marketing demographic and can be like filed into a certain like sentiment that will speak to you or something like that.
Well, it's just like hijacking.
But like I really like it still has not been teased out enough, because this is like the preliminary thing that has to get teased out, is to what degree are we ascribing evil to the content / consequence of the thing. And if we're not going to label that as the primary evil element, then we have to figure out what it is otherwise. Like even this idea of like it makes me love life less, it's like, well, that just sounds like it's the consequences of the film.
Yeah, I think we should.
But it's a subjective consequence, but it's a consequence, right?
I think you've got evil light, which is consequences oriented, and I think it's the less interesting topic than deep evil. And I think for deep evil, it's not about making me love life less. The film intends to reduce my love of life.
Well,
that's
because I think.
Well, then I don't know about time intending to do that.
Yeah, no. Let's forget about. I know about time is evil light. Let's get rid of about time.
Can I ask a question
right.
to Troy? So so you think I feel like there has to be a movie out there where you come away from it feeling like yucky and like worse. Like I don't really see a film that goes and makes you feel like kind of like killing yourself as necessarily evil.
Not necessarily. I agree.
Right.
There are the darkest, ugliest things I've seen are usually not coming from evil movies. There are usually evil movies are fairly ineffectual, but I mean, I would think of. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that. I guess that's just
like Seventh Continent. Seventh Continent is like a pure, argument for just the most abysmal. It's extremely ugly, but it's also unbelievably beautiful.
But that seems to contradict your like. Are you saying Seventh Continent makes you love life more?
Yes, but it doesn't matter that that's its consequence. I think that Seventh Continent is not presenting an image of the world that is not infinitely beautiful. I think it's just like half of Bergman films are like super like difficult, drab, dark, ugly things, but their power comes from the unbelievably beautiful world and infinite beauty it's like in reference to, or at least in opposition to, or something. Versus I think something like I really wish I need to think of a film that we all are like, oh yeah, but like Possessor or something that is truly a promotion of ugliness and a promotion of like, I mean,
Well,
what's
I
the A24 film? The one where Nicolas Cage is like appearing in everyone's dreams. That's evil.
I've seen the other by Brandon Cronenberg, Infinity Pool.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think it for sure revels in some kind of I don't know, like ugliness, like, and just despondent with I don't know, like not even super wealthy, but just like middle to upper class white tourist, like whatever that class of person is. It's like trying to just make you see that class of person as ugly, which is also like trying to make you see yourself as ugly if you're like the average person, because it's not like some crazy elite rich person only getaway. But I just want to say though, like the thing is even in that film, the ugliness is so on show, and you clearly just occupy. You start to just take on a third person perspective where you aren't like engrossed in the film. You're basically just watching it to like watch for critique, watch for analysis. And even if it's not the most fecund thing for analysis or for critique, it actually raises the question more generally where when you say something is evil, you could just as like it because it like it's trying to deceive you or something like that. You could just as easily argue, well, I mean, there's an evilness to it, but it's really a critique. And so there's like, and as in it's ripe for critique. And that was like part of the intention built into it. And it's like, you could make that argument for probably Possessor 2, probably almost all of the things we might classify as like evil. There's still like a merit to them as like a thing that's trying to show something. And even if it's doing a bad job or telling you the wrong thing, it's like producing an artifact to be examined. And as long as it's not like literally hurting the people in it, like to make it or something like that, I don't know. I'm not sure if I can even get on board with the evil film classification, and barring like really obvious cases or the more general evil light thing that we've signed on to, which is like, I mean, the messaging is just bad or problematic.
Yeah, ignoring evil light. So you're saying you're not sure if there's any film out there that you would say if we're trying to get as grounded as possible. I mean, it's how grounded can we even get using a term like evil, like,
Yeah.
I feel like part of this is just to talk about what we mean by evil. But if we are like on a mission to ground it totally, it just won't succeed. Like in some sense, it's like, oh, the evil film is the film that's against beauty, like, or something, like I mean, I hear you. I mean, I'd be interested to hear if you, Steven, have any films you think you would call evil that aren't, and I think no consequence stuff, no material stuff. So like, forget about movies that like abuse their actors or whatever. That's not real.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the issue. Is I think there's still a lot of play within the evil light category. So it's like it's not like that's all the obvious stuff. I think that's actually like a place where we can really like talk about like a lot of different gradations of what makes something evil when it comes to, okay, is it for instance, very briefly, the coming of age film. Okay, I think I sign on to what John's saying. It seems like they're capturing people at a relatively impressionable period of time, and it's kind of like instilling them with an idea that might be problematic for their future of how love works, how careers work, how life works, what you can get away with, things like that. Those might all be like materially problematic for a person to imbibe as a kid, but at the same time, like we actually end up in a pretty interesting conversation of like, I can play devil's advocate and justify all those films because it's like, well, when you're in your youth, maybe it's a good thing to have some sort of false ideals and just kind of this pursuit, this fantasy world. Maybe it's good that people exist in Neverland for a period of time because it imbues them with a kind of love that will then get tailored and attenuated as they go through life and face more problems moving forward. But there's some sort of like extreme romantic vigor you feel when you're watching those films at an impressionable age that you can't really get if you were watching, like, you know, and I use this term really loosely, like a realist coming of age film that's about like the raw reality of how love actually is or something like that. And you might end up with like kernels of beauty that you as a grown person can appreciate. But as a young person who has no experience, you can't even appreciate what a real coming of age experience would look like. Because when you're coming of age, you only have that sort of imagined fantasy future to think about. And so, like, I'm not sure if all these coming of age films I would even classify as evil light because they have these false ideas of what love is or something like that. There is still something kind of beautiful about the play of that and allowing a person to kind of be filled with that sort of fantasy for a period of time.
Totally agree. I mean, Dead Poet Society, for however trite, cringe, misleading it is, has probably done more good than bad for all the 9-year-olds who were extremely impassioned by it, and it woke them up to the beauty of art and whatever. So I agree. I feel like even in the evil light category, we have to avoid talking about consequence.
I'm in agreement with Steven, but there is like this weird category, and I almost want to put like Marvel movies in this category or something, or even like, you know, Everything Everywhere All at Once or something, right? Where like it's almost like it's built on top of this layer of trash, like, or not trash, but like triteness of the coming of age movie. And there's, if you like talk to like a lot of like way too many like adults, you know, like millennials and stuff, like their favorite movie is like some garbage like this, you know, and they're like stuck in this time. It's almost as if like culturally they've come to like a point where they cannot progress past 500 Days of Summer. It's like a kid who like, it's like, oh, they're like 5, it's okay, they don't know how to read, and then all of a sudden they're 12, right, and they're fucked. You know what I mean? And there's something about a lot of these movies that feel stunting to people. Like, it doesn't allow them to continue.
It's more, so it's not, so it's like, I mean, I don't want to say that there's nothing inherent in the films themselves, but it's kind of like when they're examined on a case-by-case basis, it's like you do have to give a little more weight to kind of something that, like the kind of point that Steven's making. But it's like, if you take like Marvel, it's like when you think about a Marvel movie, when you go to watch a Marvel movie, it's like you are thinking about this cultural context that lives within and like where it's coming from. And so it's like, if you call like a Marvel movie evil, it's like you're not actually giving it its due, not that it necessarily like directly deserves it on like its individual basis, but it's like you're kind of like you're not necessarily saying like this particular film is evil, but you're saying something more about
the apparatus that made it and the consequences and what that tells like, about society.
It could be that the most evil thing is like movie's current state, like maybe, I don't know. Like, wait,
what are you saying?
Like, it could be that the most evil thing, like in general,
the evil
about
we made along the way
it's like movies' current state. You know, like there are no, you know, maybe there are some like super underground shit, but in general, like there aren't any options for media growth. Like it seems like we're entirely stunted in like Neverland childhoodville of like, yay, Spider-Man. And then we take one step up and it's like body horror, like look at me fucking die type shit. And it's like there's no Godfather, there's no The Departed, there's no Fight Club. Like, it's like we lack the gradation. And that's even to say, I'm even saying gradation is like a false term, because it's like as if like Fight Club is like somewhere like as if watching The Challengers is like above watching Fight Club, which is like The Challengers is just trash.
Do you think, are you advocating for there being almost a middle ground of evil light category that is almost just like we're talking about just mediocrity?
Yeah, it's called
You
Pulp
know.
Fiction. We already have it. No, I know what you're saying. Sorry. I do have a sense that, like, I agree that kids are caught in, like, an infantilization. Adults are caught in the infantilization of Marvel and all this stuff, but it's, like, not evil to discover that if you make a movie for kids and it turns out adults like it too, you know?
I do. Like, I don't want to get caught up in this point of some kind of like, kind of the overall like degradation of like, you know, films or whatever coming out. But I will say it's like, if you go on like Letterboxd, you can like click on like the year something was made, and it'll show you every like a bunch of shit that came out that year, like everything that came out. You just scroll, and it's like, and sort it by like what like popularity and stuff, and it's like it is pretty shocking to see like how many, like pick like any year pre like 2000, you know, and it's like,
whoa, this is crazy.
Like 15 films came out that year that you're like, oh wow, those are actually all really good movies. And it's like I think that it is like a function both of like, you know, the movie theater being like a certain, you know, whatever institution that is not like the way that we consume films anymore, you know, and blah, 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 blah. So it's like, yeah, sure, maybe we are making Pulp Fiction still, but it's like the way in which we measure and frame, like, what is the cultural zeitgeist producing and praising, and like, what is the, you know, what are we, it's like, I don't know, there's a lot of layers to like, you know, Sundance. You can't like just be like, oh, well, what came out in Sundance this year and compare that directly against like what came out in Sundance in like 1995. You know what I mean? Because it's like, that's not the place where that thing is necessarily being made and found and appraised anymore. That kind of just like doesn't exist.
Like one reason why I think films have gotten worse is an aspect. Well, firstly, it'd be interesting to see like what like the educational process is like for people who want to learn how to write and make films, and how they're being trained and like what they're learning from. And I don't just mean teachers, I also mean like what they're studying. So what they're studying is Pulp Fiction. Like this generation is people who like that was what was coming out as like a cream of the crop, and then their job is to innovate and develop it. Like that becomes a touchstone for like what is a really epic film that did something unique, and now I can make something different. So there is something like we might say like in the 90s there were a lot of like really interesting or cool films coming out, but it's even if those are cool, we would rarely say that those are like cream of the crop, the god tier films or something like that. They're all just pretty cool. It'd be interesting to see a chronology of like, okay, well, if Fight Club is the film you watched when you were trying to learn how to make a film and you were falling in love with film, well then, and if you're not Fincher himself, like, is the movie you're going to end up making, if that's what you're learning from to some degree, or if that's what you've been impressed upon by as what film can do, then there's a limitation there, I think. And that's what we're like maybe starting to encounter is like a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds are making films now in the industry, and like they just don't have any sort of actual capacity to write a compelling drama. They basically just think in terms of images and in terms of scenes and in terms of what, like, not even like epic one-liners, but more like a very, very, very shot oriented, very aesthetic oriented, very it looks a certain way oriented, and they don't think about a drama. And that's because to some degree I think what they were learning from was probably moving towards this anyways, but we just see it getting exacerbated. And then one other comment I wanted to make about the diagnosis is I think there's also been a huge dispersal of the talent. So like there's never been like just this plethora of people who can write great films. It's always been like only so many people are even like able to like write a really good film or something like that. But you don't even need to put a number to it. It doesn't matter. But like these people now go to different resources, like say Netflix, to write their own feature. They're doing a feature film for Netflix. Oh, guess what? The feature film produced by Netflix sucks. Why? Well, there might be a lot of different like they're not getting the same level of infrastructure support and restraints that were really helping them make a good film. and they don't know what they're trying to appeal to anymore because it's a streamer database rather than like a concentric theater model where it's like, I know what theater goers want to see to some degree. Instead, what theater goers want to see has been totally co-opted by the Marvel machine. So you have like these more kind of like pseudo auteur people, but they're like moving out into different streaming platforms and stuff to make their stuff, and they might not be getting the same kind of infrastructure support. And also, the talent is moving towards things like series, and I'm not saying like series are the greatest thing ever, but again, you just have these different things pulling away where people are like, we're going to make the next epic drama series that's going to be like 5 seasons long, like it's going to be like some kind of Breaking Bad thing, a long form narrative, and they kind of just fizzle out because, well, I don't know. Again, it's like some of them like really succeed, but the idea is that the talent gets siphoned into something like Succession, and then it's like, well, why aren't we getting good movies now? Well, it's like, well, we did get Succession. I'm not saying like TV is the best thing ever, but I just mean like the talent of Hollywood is just spreading out. And so now it's not in feature-length films anymore that end up in theaters. It's on random-ass bullshit, which makes it way harder to... But then this other infrastructure thing means the general quality of even those streaming things is worse as well. I think there's something to this. The process of production that these places facilitate is just kind of worse than what major Hollywood was getting by with in the 90s. I don't know, but these are just general guesses, because we did get Safdie Brothers, we did get Uncut Gems, we did get Good Time, yada yada.
As a little fluff filler, we referenced the year that Pulp Fiction came out, 1994. It is a fucking crazy year.
Yeah.
Shawshank, Hoop Dreams, Ken Burns, Baseball, Satin Tango, 3 Colors Red, 3 Colors White, Chungking Express, Through the Olive Trees, Crumb, Forrest Gump, Trier the Kingdom, Leon Professional. I mean, it's literally Confusion, like literally like so many bangers, and like 5 of those are like legitimate, world cinema dubs.
Yeah.
And you can also look at you can look at kind of like the institutional affirmation of like, what is good. You can look at like, well, what played at Cannes that year, and it's like a lot of those films went to Cannes and did well, or like got watched and appraised, and it's like you can do the same thing with like what Cannes did this year, and you can watch all those movies and maybe like a couple of them will stand out versus like that one had like 7,
Yeah.
And like won't compare necessarily to those.
2020.
But to get us back to like evil, right?
Yeah.
If we're trying to talk about evil, and we want to link it back to Marvel. So there is something. So like that is a whole topic. Is like, to what degree has Marvel either inflicted evil on the world, or to what degree is it at its core an evil idea? Like, is there something evil in the not just superhero films, because it's such a wide potential genre, right? You obviously have Dark Knight, which is very different than a Marvel film. Is there something about the form of the Marvel film itself that like necessitates that it be evil in some way, and not just in its messaging or something, like something else? And I think there is.
I think the evil thing is just how it capitalized on the formula to basically, bootstrap itself into a money printing machine, and it's just like devoid of any aspiration.
Yeah.
It's in the same vein as that, but like you have to get into how it's made. But even that, I don't know if evil's the right word. Like, is it evil when like it's like a sort of question of like, are sweatshops evil? Well, it's like it's sort of just an outcome of like market forces and talent to observe them. But like I feel like the evil thing of Marvel films is like it was the first at industrial scale realization that you could make movies in a real statistical manner that had like unseen levels of disconnection from art and the customer and stuff. And it's just filming. I mean, they film the movies, right? Like they film the movies without knowing what it's going to be like. They just shoot all this stuff. They focus group everything. They build huge statistical tables and references and sequencing and everything. And they assemble this true like inhuman product, and it works. And like that system is maybe like an evil thing insofar as like maybe sweatshops are an evil thing, but at the same time it's like, well, it's just people like making a buck and
No,
you know,
the thing
nothing wrong happened there.
So if like it has to be more evil than the sweatshop because it's sweatshop plus. So like sweatshop, what does it produce? It produces sweatpants, whatever.
Sweatshops produce sweatpants, yeah.
Right? Like unless if the sweatshop was producing something that infantilized and destroyed the brains of like an entire generation of fucking
Suppose it
people.
produced nicotine or heroin or whatever, you know,
right?
like
Yeah, like that's like
Chinese heroin super labs. I don't think that's evil.
like right. Well, you don't think right? Like that's like it's and what's interesting is like the sweatshops aren't trying to fucking or sorry. The byproduct isn't something that fucking kills you. It might kill the people making it, right? But you just get cheap fucking product, okay? You can get lost in the weeds and like other like ecosystem crap, but whatever, right? This one is fucking like it's killing people.
I don't know. I think this is kind of a tough comparison. I feel like the sweatshop is in an actual way probably, I mean, is killing people, and Marvel movies are like infantilizing an entire culture.
Yeah,
which I agree is, you know, who knows what's
Killing
what,
our
but
civilization.
But
I just mean like that's live.
Sweatshops are obviously evil.
Well, I don't know. I don't
even if
what?
we just qualify
Don't
that with
speak
saying
for Troy.
Don't speak for me.
Even if we just acknowledge that there can be things like that there's elements of capitalism that are like necessary evils or something like that, and that it's a process or something, like there could be an element like that, an element of something that is in some sense either justified or imminent can still be considered evil.
My point is only to point out that, like the sweatshop is like the Marvel studio, it's what we're talking about. Like the best thing we're going to get at for what is or isn't evil is a process. You know, is the sand dune evil? You know, so like when you say like sweatshops are evil, like, oh, we can all say sweatshops are evil. Can we? I'm asking that question, and if we can, and I don't mean to get like too like now we're going to get all super pedantic in a way that's completely unrelated to film. But like, where's the evil in the sweatshop? Like, I think, all you have is poor people putting together a factory and trying to make a product, and it's like, you look at it, it's you know what I mean? We don't have to get too crazy into it, but all I'm saying is, are we feeling good about calling processes evil wherein no one involved is, and then it's like, so it's just the process is evil? I don't know,
No, I think that there's, so going back to Marvel movies, I think there's something evil, even though it generates money, or it's a fiscally reasonable thing to do for them, at least for a period of time. Maybe it's not, because it actually led to its dissolution of film to some degree. But the like this fetishization of the actor, and the actors as the people who are, like Tony Stark is Robert Downey Jr. That element and the way that also captured people to where real life and the fantasy world of the Marvel world completely blended together. Sure, it was like a fiscally productive thing for them to do, but I think that now from just a consequentialist lens, like the consequences of that are like a degradation of what it is to be like an individual subject in the world. Because like the way you relate to images on a screen and to actors and things like this is radically transformed, and I think it's for the worse. And I don't think it's something that we could say that it had to happen for market reasons or something like that, or was bound to happen. The issue though is like, I'm not even sure if I buy into that sort of like imminent potentiality to it. There's something like that this could be like what is, it's impossible to even assess the degree to which this has crippled the movie industry altogether moving forward. So it might have been like a big boom for them and a justifiable thing in this immediate sense. But if they were even rational capitalists with access to infinite knowledge or something like that, which is obviously impossible, they might not have even taken these steps. Like they wouldn't have pushed Marvel movies on us the way they have. So all we can look at instead is like, well, does it seem like it's having like reasonable consequences? Can we look at like I feel like that's like one of the only ways we can judge whether or not the Marvel movie is evil at all. If we just say it's like to make a buck, then whatever. I don't know.
Well, I thought we were getting away from consequences, and two, I totally know what you're talking about the collapse of actor character, but I actually feel that it's actually rather obvious that the opposite is taking place as time goes on in film. Like, never was there a stronger collapse between actor character than in like the 1950s, where it's like Bogart play, like people were
That's true.
obsessed, and only today do you really get a bunch of movies that people love and they have no idea who the actors are.
No. So speaking from a super contemporary lens, it might be true that that's evaporating. I know what you're saying about the Bogart yada yada or whatever. He's playing this guy. He's in this film, or it's a whatever film, right? It's a Marlon Brando film. Fair enough to all that, but the unique thing about the Marvel film is that you have a running series of the same actors playing their guy. It's a serialization of the film where it's like you're not Robert Downey Jr. in public is Tony Stark, not because he was in Iron Man 1 or even 2, but it's because
he is Tony Stark.
Yes, because 15 or 20 years long, like this series has fucking like turned him into that, and how we so it's a whole different kind a shift has happened in what we're talking about. We're not talking about a Ryan Gosling film or something like that, which is like of a different level of it, like a different kind of issue. It's the Marvel actor, like Scarlett Johansson, like she's not even, like, she isn't even an actress. She isn't a person anymore. She's just like Black Widow to the world. Like, it just became that. And that's like, there's something, and that's what they would sell it on and things like that, and keep selling them on that, and keep selling them on that. It used to be like, oh, a Marlon Brando film, really cool. He's an awesome actor. I can't wait to see what role he plays. Dude, and now we get a drama where he's playing a fucking schizo or something. It's like epic.
It's even worse because like, it's not Scarlett Johansson's in this movie. It's like, Black Widow's in this movie. And and then when they make a new Marvel movie, it's like, we're gonna bring in Black Widow and fucking Iron Man and fucking Spider-Man.
They're in the same movie.
Like it's like it's not all the actors are together. It's like all the characters are together.
Real.
Something that's kind of interesting about that point too is like if you like Marlon Brando or whatever, you're also dealing with, that's like the first, that's like when movies are becoming popularized too, right? It's like, it's still like very early in film. And so it's like the divide between like, what's a story, I don't know. It's like movies are like a very powerful medium. And it's like, I feel like that there's like this really strong, it's like the first encounter with like what a movie star is,
it's like the birth of fame.
It
comes with all the post-war communication.
Exactly. It's like this person and how they kind of relate to this kind of character of who they are that like is projected out into the media, and it's kind of like the beginning of sort of like the whatever, just to use the word, like the kind of like parasocial like relationship between like what a person is and who they actually are, and versus like because it's like Marlon Brando, it's like how he's perceived is still kind of similar in some ways to how like Robert Downey Jr. It's like, rather than him being Robert Downey Jr. and he has this character of Robert Downey Jr. that people think that he is or something, it's like now it's been replaced with Iron Man, or like Tony Stark or whatever. But so I think like a similar thing still is going on with Marlon Brando, but the I don't know. Maybe Steven, you can clarify like I don't know. Now that I've said that, is like what the essential difference is like. Well, between the two, so like how the public relates to them and why it's bad.
Yeah. So I actually want to add the caveat that I'm not against talking. Like, to me, the consequences matter a lot. Even if I wouldn't subscribe to a totally consequentialist thing, like just like to respond to something that was mentioned earlier about like what Troy was like, maybe we're moving away from consequentialism I'm actually on board with saying like I'm on board with talking about consequences as an indicator of whether or not something's evil, to some degree. And then to try to briefly try to readdress the thing about the Marvel, I'll try and do it really brief. I'm not sure if I have it well formulated, but I think we can clearly see that, and maybe we'll lump it in with the consequentialist thing, like the consequences of Marlon Brando being the double character of, okay, he's a film character, or a triple character. He's a film character, he's Marlon Brando as a guy who you don't know and will never know, and there's Marlon Brando as a lifestyle actor who I worship as a celebrity, right? There's three there. Okay. Well, what you're being sold by the Marlon Brando as celebrity is still as even though this is like a gross consumeristic false lifestyle thing, you're still being sold a unique kind of lifestyle. Okay? The issue with the Marvel things is that every single character basically blends together into a vacuous non-lifestyle thing, but it totally engrosses you in this pure parasocial just following the lives of. You don't even, like, there's little eccentricities. So Robert Downey Jr. is maybe, he's also the most interesting because he has a level of eccentricity. All the other ones, they are boring as hell. Fucking who cares about any of them? And yet the people do care. They do care about, is it Chris Evans, Captain America? Yeah, like people do care about that dude, even though he's the most nothing burger human on earth, and Ryan Reynolds and all these people.
Dude,
right?
there is something
Holy
so
Ryan
sad about
Talking about evil.
the fact that you have, dude, Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, well, that's where we should have started. Oh my gosh.
Started with Ryan Reynolds.
Started with Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, find something we can agree
Epicenter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the epicenter of all evil is Ryan Reynolds. But no, there is something really, I think, just, I don't know if this actually clarifies anybody's points that they've made, but there is something really depressing about the way in which Marvel movies have kind of eaten up these actors, which, like, so just recently I rewatched Boogie Nights, and like Don Cheadle's in that, and it's like, it's just really depressing to know that he's been kind of eaten up by Marvel movies because they're just like, you know, collecting this bag, you know, on these movies that like make billions. They're getting paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's like, I don't know, there's something really sad. Or like, even like, you know, Mark Ruffalo is like a pretty decent actor, and there's like, you know, these actors aren't bad actors, but it's like,
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. They're certainly complicit. They're certainly complicit in like this, you know, kind of, they're sort of like a selling their souls 2.0 that's going on.
And the obvious thing, like, you know, like moving slightly away from actors, is like making Marvel movies, as we've alluded to already, has like completely opened Pandora's box. Like, we, like, you know, the whole thing about baseball and Moneyball, right? Where like the moment statistics got involved, like baseball died, like it's over. You know, like now the whole industry is being run completely by a bunch of like dudes with iPads, like trying to find like the statistically best
iPads.
Dudes with iPads,
like statistically trying to find like the best like fucking way to hit and pitch. You know, and it's completely removed the humanity from it, but it's worse than what happened to baseball. It's worse than what happened to baseball.
Way worse.
Because it's fucking it's art. Like, I like fuck you fucking capitalist Elon Musk suckers. A film is art. I'm not afraid to say
the classic thing, right? The classic thing. Very yeah.
I feel like go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say like the classic thing, right, is like the Netflix thing where it's like, you know, our viewers have, we did the calculation, and viewers, you know, if there is not an image of a dog in the first 15 seconds in the left of frame, it's like, then people will stop watching. So we're going to need you to add that in.
Well, what's amazing is actually, to be honest with you, is how long it took for this to happen. Because data is, you know, has been floating around since the moment somebody wrote down a fucking number, right? So it's like I
mean, they've always been doing it to some degree, though.
Unironically, it's actually. Or go ahead.
Well, sorry.
You go.
My thing is that Marvel movies really did something. There has never been such a strong connection between capital and what we consume as art, right? And like on a daily basis, I think. You know, and I think ever since Marvel movies, the YouTube videos I've been watching have gotten worse. Marvel movies gave rise to Mr. Beast. Talk about evil. He's literally the Mr. Beast. Okay?
True.
And I swear to God, there's a connection between Marvel movies and Mr. Beast. And there's a connection.
I think that is absolutely true.
There's a connection between, dude, our Instagram used to be fun. Okay? I'm getting slaved away by statistics constantly. Constantly.
You're just a statistic, buddy. Sorry.
It's over. Media watching things has ended.
Now they watch you.
I'm serious. Watching things is over. It's
We
done. We're not watching.
Hold on, you
can
haven't-
either watch what has already come out,
You
or
haven't seen Yee
if
yet.
something has come out, I've already seen Yee. If something comes
Oh.
out, it's over.
Get fucked.
Don't
Brian.
watch
Okay,
it.
yeah,
It's bad.
No, you're right.
Brody.
At first, I thought watching media is not over, but then he has already seen Yee. Okay, hold on. We can't. Well, maybe we can. Who am I to say what we can and can't do? Few things. One, Quake Boogie Nights aside, I just found out John C. Reilly was like super tight with PTA, and like they like did so much stuff. They're like buddies.
Yeah,
Two,
Oh yeah.
it's been like a
Okay.
trillion things.
the statistification or the the moneyballification of all this stuff, I think actually is not surprising. It's come about now, and there's a clear connection between Marvel and all this stuff, right? It is an actual technological development. Like it is an actual recent technological capability to interpret video signal as semantic. Like there were analysts, who were trying to like pump the numbers and use their brains, but now we can like actually convert, a picture of an apple into the word apple and put it into a table somewhere. But not interesting. But
Brody,
I mean,
pull up the DARPA
Marvel
study.
is
Pull up the DARPA white paper.
yeah, Marvel is an interesting point. I think what makes it most interesting is one, its scale and size. I mean, each movie has the budget of the GDP of like bigger than half the countries in the world, but also it's like it's infantilization, and it's like no surprise. Like if you pump, it's the same thing with like reels, whatever. Like you pump the stats, what is gonna hijack the the brainstem of our audience? Stuff that's for little kids, So like that's like kind of maybe interesting. I feel like. I'm still kind of stuck on this whole evil thing as a term applied to processes and systems. And I felt, I don't know if we need to go all the way back to Sweatshop, and feel free to ignore me again. And I don't mean to make it so like we have to get to like the fundamentals of ethics, but it's like if we're going to talk about evil, I feel like there needs to be some type of like agency, because should there not be, it's a description of something, to use your like emergent potential of life itself as evil, where it's like if something is just life, can it be evil? Like how do we call a system? You know what I mean? I think a system can be evil. I think an outcome can be evil. I think you need some agency. I think for a system to be evil, there needs to be some type of awareness, maybe not located in a human agent, but some type of understanding. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Well, okay.
Or are we comfortable just talking about like natural outcomes of life itself as evil?
No.
Natural. I do think that it is like right. It's like you say like natural outcomes. It's like the word natural is
Well, no, I'm not doing a natural
physical
fallacy.
implied.
Like obviously, rape is evil, but we say that because what we refer to as the agency of the perpetrator. Or the perpetrator itself, rather.
Yeah.
But like,
just-
would we
just
talk
to-
about like rape as a phenomenon?
No. We can talk. Yeah, but we can talk about that when it comes to. Okay, now I'm not advocating for this in particular, but say we had more and I don't mean that this would solve the problem. We could have major issues. Okay, we as a general population could have the agency to have put forward the general idea that films and artwork should be funded not for profit. Now, that would mean more state-funded art. Is that a good idea? I don't know. But there are ways in which we can change systems as a collective, like yada, yada, yada. Like, clearly, it's not like just because capitalism exists and there's some sort of like imminent quality to it that there aren't like ways we can like tailor things and counteract things and add certain elements, things like that. So I don't know. So you can't say certain elements of processes are evil because we do have the agency in theoretical terms. Like we have some element of agency in not pursuing that.
Well,
you can make it even clearer example. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say you can go to like Europe and like talk about like how the a lot of what we consider to be kind of like the best of like European cinema. It's like if you were to go to look at the funding for any of those, it's like almost all of them have some almost none of them made money and stuff. And yeah, exactly. There's just they produced everything. But the point is like the point is that like it's like the cultural conditions. I mean, if you're to like try to identify like agents and agency and the decisions being made, it's like it does get a little bit complicated because you do have to then refer to like cultural conditions that form like how, you know, one's moral framework, you know, emerges and how what is considered like, you know, right or wrong, etc. And it's like whatever the cultural conditions were to, you know, fucking create whatever the spooks are that run like fucking Disney, you know, like you know, it's like, you
Fucking
know,
spooks.
I mean, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Thankfully, AI will remove the profit motive for art.
Thankfully, AI will fix this problem. I mean, maybe I'm just on like train brain, but I'm like not even thinking about film anymore. I'm just thinking like, if it's a natural outcome of life itself that we develop nuclear weapons and annihilate all human life as a result of some accident, you know, like was that process evil? You know, like
I just feel back in movie terms. I'm
okay being totally ungrounded. I'm okay being totally ungrounded. I'm just trying to clarify that we, real quickly to frame my concern, I'm okay with proceeding totally ungrounded. I'm just trying to establish if we are in some sort of agreement that we're ungrounded when we're describing processes and systems as evil. And you're saying there's something unclear about my nuclear holocaust example?
Wait, I don't get, do you think, wait, so I don't feel like I'm without ground when it comes to like accusing like a process of evil. I don't get it.
What does it mean for a process to be evil?
So when I say the process is evil, I mean that there's a certain element that I reject, like the same thing with a film. When you were saying like the film makes you love life less.
Yeah.
Probably something related to that, but now just applied to the process and the fact that it produces things that consistently make me love life less.
Yeah, but there's a sense
and the process is obviously, it only exists by human interaction. The process isn't just there floating. It's like it's by human institutions and human actors. So it's difficult to pinpoint specific people, but imagine I can try to make it more grounded on the level of the individual trolley level. So like, imagine I'm standing next to another guy and I say that art should not be fundamentally for profit. That should not be its primary motive. And the guy to my right says, you're wrong. Art is fundamentally for profit. I think that his ideas are evil. Now, is he a totally evil person? I don't know. But I think that idea in its extreme is evil. Mm-hmm. And so anyone who occupies a position of making films where that's their central notion guiding life, I think that's an evil idea. And it's going to come about in their actions.
All right, I'm down to proceed. I know what you're saying.
Like, it's like their actions are evil by product of, like, you know, right, enacting the idea as opposed to their, like, you know, intentions or something directly.
I'm on board with this, down to proceed, mostly because I feel like I'm starting to derail it. It's a significant divorce in some sense from my conception of evil as attributed to something approximating a will, although I can see how the ideas have wills unto themselves in not, I mean, maybe not as clear a way in which a film has a will of its own, but I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Fuck Ryan Reynolds.
Can we talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds definitely has an evil will, and he's generating his own evil ideas.
Dude, you're right. Yeah, what's the elephant?
He's coming up with
I mean, not to be really lame, but isn't it like, we don't need to go super commie mode, but there's something just whack about how he's just obviously just permanently chasing the bag. There's something annoying about that, isn't there?
Yes, but I'm less concerned with, like, I think that we are totally on the same page in terms of the types of things we mean by when we're saying evil.
Right. Yeah.
I just I feel like we're returning to a more colloquial sense rather than like a more grounded sense, which I think is probably even better for the conversation. I still feel like my train brain still desperately wants to get into like all this stuff of agency and will and what can and can't be evil, but I think it doesn't matter. And I mean, as long as we all know Ryan Reynolds is evil, and I mean, I don't know. I agree.
Wait. I mean, the obvious. I'm only trying to say. So I agree.
We could say rape as a phenomenon is a terrible thing. Even if you ignore the agents involved, you just say like this is essentially some type of evil phenomenon right? Without attributing malice to life itself, right? It's like there are evil wills, there are evil elements of the human psyche, there are evil. Life is not 100% non-evil.
Okay, I could relatively agree with that. That's what I was saying about the sweatshops.
Yeah, you get more sophisticated. Yeah. Sweatshops.
Okay.
I'm okay now using the phrase
Okay,
evil. I think mostly in an effort to like avoid semantic hell.
Well, my only issue, I wasn't saying like the Ryan Reynolds as some sort of rebuttal or like, oh, look at this extra point I have as a piece of an argument. I meant more like a reluctant sigh, like, is that really the evil thing? Like, if we all nod our heads and say Ryan Reynolds, haha, evil, is it just because he's chasing the bag? Like, what is the evil that's actually at work there? Like, I don't know. Like, if it's that, it's kind of boring, but it probably is, or something like that.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying I feel like if we get into this world of consequences and systems and processes, it's interesting insofar as like observations and insights into like the contemporary world, or even whatever, just interests and insights. But it's like a little, I feel like as the further away you move from like real clear senses of agency, the more it ends up being like, that's life. How unfortunate. Like the evil of the sweatshop is not interesting.
Okay.
Or am I totally missing the point about Ryan Reynolds?
Well, sometimes I'm just losing a little bit about what you're saying, but I also, so I either want to let you have another turn at like explaining it, the relationship you're seeing here, or just, yeah, we could pivot to something else.
Well, let's talk about Ryan Reynolds. Or rather, we have an elephant in the room yet to be discussed.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just kind of reel it in a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we need to reel it in a little bit. But yeah, we need to discuss the elephant in the room.
All right.
And that is, why aren't horror movies evil? And more largely, sort of more big picture, why is it not evil to make the audience uncomfortable or agitate them or present them with some sort of whatever, right? Because in a certain sense, it is an assault, right? And you could say, oh, well, it's serving some other purpose.
Yeah, we commonly speak in terms of justification.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you saying?
Yeah, I'm just saying, just as a jumping point for someone, but like usually I feel like when we talk about stuff like that, we're talking about justification. Does the film justify the way in which it harms us, right? Like, because I agree, most horror films totally are unjustified. They're just ugly, and they don't pay for themselves.
Yeah, well, there's what's interesting though is like the different ways in which things pay for themselves, because I think there's some horror movies where you watch them and they don't, it's not like watching The Piano Teacher and watching these, pretty horrible, like kind of painful scenes that, then, result in this kind of very deep and interesting and profound thing. But you also have horror movies that like may show you something like somewhat depraved, but the way in which it's framed and the enjoyment of it is like, there can be kind of like a lightness to it, which is like I think what a lot of people experience when watching a lot of horror movies, where it's like, obviously you have like the whole category of things that are kind of campy, and it's like some of those movies have some really like fucked up shit in them,
Terrifying.
And like, but at the same time, there's still, I don't know, there's kind of an interesting sliding scale, right, of like how, like where you draw the line of like what stops being enjoyable. Because like I think things like, I've been thinking about it recently because like all these like the Final Destination movie just came out, and I keep getting like behind the scenes things of like these deaths and like people and they're like talking about like making, and I'm like watching these, and like I've never seen a Final Destination film. I've seen clips. I'm also like particularly squeamish like with certain like kind of gory or horrible things, but that being said, like I go into the comments because I'm looking at this, I'm like, Jesus, this is behind the scenes and this is like still making my stomach turn, and everybody's like, so fucking funny, like this is crazy, and so I don't know, whatever.
I don't know. It's true that there's a sliding scale to things. But I think a big issue with the horror film, like obviously what are evil are like body horror films. Like those things are basically just there for you to exploit a subject. You're there to, like, you're not there to treat a person as a person. You're there to be immersed in the subjugation of a person. And so if a horror film, like, and the person of course is like still a character, but the whole point is that you are treating them at you. The fundamental issue is that when you're watching a film and you're watching it the right way, you're obviously seeing these people as people. They are just being presented to you, and they are reality as you're watching the thing, right? And so when you have a character that's being subjugated, like tortured or something like that, and you're watching and you're indulging in these sadistic things, it doesn't seem like the horror film is there to make you feel uneasy. It seems like it's there to actually just, I don't know, like encourage this kind of extraction of enjoyment from the hurting of another person. Whereas many other horror films are more trying to get, like, they're playing with you in the psyche of a character who is scared or something like that, and the terror is a little bit more ethereal, unknown, but you really are that person, and you're not reveling in your attack against the character. So like the body horror films are you attacking. This is all what Funny Games is about, right? But Funny Games is obviously allowed to do this. It's clearly committing the same crime of the body horror film, but it's obviously doing it in a self-referential way, in a way that pulls your attraction or your attention out of the subjugation of the people into a genuine empathy for the subjugated individuals, but then forcing you to confront this. That's exactly, and so it gets to do it from a totally different justified perspective. But yeah, it's this, and the consequence, of course, is like just treat, like, people's subjectivities get fucking destroyed by watching these kinds of things. They don't realize how they're being told, like they're learning to just hurt other things or to be okay with things being hurt in front of them in real life too, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like what it's kind of like how I feel about Troy's mosquito video that he sent to the Instagram earlier.
I sent there's an Instagram page called Mosquito Torture where they kill mosquitoes in elaborate ways.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, I'm obviously making a joke about the mosquito thing, but I was also just gonna make just like another reference to drop in here. It's like this is kind of what Demon Lover is about too, right? Is like this relationship between like where it's like, what if the subject is a real subject, right? Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah, I think you know, like a core of it is like it's spitting entirely on like the art form. Like it's just taking a gigantic shit on like what it means to like make a movie and to try and reach an audience and to take an audience, get an audience, and not gift them with something worth fucking watching and worth fucking paying attention to. You know what I mean? They're feeding them sloppa, and it's like, and it's just like hijacking you to just like be like yucky, wow. You know, like, you ever seen The Terrifier?
I know it. I understand it.
Dude, fucking bullcrap.
It's just like pinnacle of body horror.
It is, yeah, and it literally nothing happens except for the entire point of the movie is to lean into this like campy, like body horror stuff, and then to just show it and to be the most grotesque thing possible. Like, there's a scene where like they're cutting a guy open and like their intestines start to go out and they're just spraying shit like all over the clown's face, right? It's like, and then the worst part about it is that at the end there's this whole like Christ allegory thing when they end up like killing the clown, quotations, except they get to pull it all the way when they have to make sure that another Terrifier is coming, so he's still like out there, right? It's like it is pure fucking evil trash.
I feel like maybe the worst, like along the same lines, like with it being just in the way that it is kind of like using the form for its own ends, is like, I feel like the kind of the worst death in it is the character, right? And it's like the way in which it treats like the character and treats the characters as having like a subjectivity or not having a subjectivity, is, or like, you know, it's like there has to be a, you know, it's like it wouldn't be enjoyable if there was zero sense of subject, behind the character. But it also wouldn't be enjoyable if there's like too much sense of like subject behind the character, where you like get into funny games territory or something.
Yeah, I guess it is just entirely pornographic. And like I don't know, that's what makes like a good horror film versus a bad horror film, right? Is if it's just pornography and if you can enter into the subjectivity of the other person. I think that's the most important.
Yeah,
thing.
well, I think what's interesting though, right, is like a lot of the people who are really big like horror nuts, like they're interested in the whole craft of making the horror film. But that being said,
they're not.
I do think no. Yeah. That being said, it's like they are interested in that. No, I think they are genuinely interested in that. But
no.
But
Yes.
no. But it's not like they wouldn't be motivated if they weren't interested in its effect on them.
Yeah, you can
right?
totally like look into their motives and see that they're, sickos or whatever. But there's a legitimate craft element, and it's fun. There's actually a cool YouTube video walking through like the development of the jump scare and like the innovation that took place at a technical level that is actually fairly interesting. But
the development of cocksucking and how to fuck.
Yeah, it is the development of cocksucking, and it's such a less
of poppers to open your ass big to fucking put cereal.
This
inside.
is true though. This is the true analogy because in the end, this entire investigation into the development of the jump scare, for example, is really about like discovering new techniques to exploit the human mind and its biological reactions, right? It's like and its expectations, but from like a sort of physical safety POV, right? So it's like they're talking about, this was the first time there was ever a situation where the camera turns and then cuts to behind, and it's like this was a new way to exploit a sense of fear having something behind you and something like this. But there are cases where I think things take place at just a technical level that I find worthwhile. There are movies that scare me and make me feel uncomfortable and sick and whatever, but if it does so in a way that is, I feel like, boundary pushing at a technical level or at just a filmic level, it's justified. What's in particularly uninteresting about Terrifier, and I think we're just covering the bases, right? Like I think there's totally this like pornographic element, there's this harm element, there's this subjectification of the characters element and funny games and all this stuff. But there's also just like Terrifiers isn't interesting. It's so shallow. A jump scare, Nosferatu fails for me because the jump scares are trivial and it's like totally uninteresting. But you have something like Cure, which is, I think, a very spooky movie, a fairly scary movie, and not exactly like it is whatever, quote unquote, conceptually rich and like thematics and all this stuff. But it is like, I think its prize value is in its extremely rich filmic language that is engineered novelly to upset you in a way, but it's so it's still beautiful at a sort of medium level.
But
is anyone vibing with this?
Well, I can maybe agree. I do think it's interesting to talk about like the advances in the film or the medium and like how much that justifies the thing and exonerates it of evil. That is interesting, but I mean, like, I think you're like, you cannot get away from the concept, the content. Like, the content.
True, it is awesome.
Unbelievably different.
Such a good movie.
I know, it's so awesome, but I still feel like it's not totally empty to refer to the way people talk about Bergman, Tarkovsky more so, like, all this stuff about the invention of new filmic language and, like, a new form of communication, but it's all in the service of a sort of, humanistic beauty. It's not totally unwarranted to talk about things like Cure as like innovations in filmic language towards something that I wouldn't really call harm, but develop to unsettle. It's not exactly against
of course,
beauty.
Yeah,
but,
being unsettled is obviously there's nothing evil about that at all. Literally nothing.
Or even
well, no, but you have things like Ari Aster where you just are unsettled the whole time and there's no.
Well,
payoff.
I know, but it's not right. But it's not the fact that it's unsettling. If you just felt good and nothing happened, it could just as well be evil. Like there's maybe like it could be, but like
about time.
Like right. So like I mean like unsettling things like the whole Look, dude, when something being unsettling is what is the it is giving nature back its voice in oh fuck, I lost the Adorno quote. But I mean, like atonal music from Schoenberg and all those fuckers, like the whole point was to make you feel super dissatisfied and uncomfortable, and they were like, oh, what are they doing with classical music? But obviously it was super bass and it was really good, and it was trying to get you to see, like it was trying to give you a what's the word, sidelong glance at what evil is, because you can't look at evil directly or else it just becomes a fiction. It's just fake. So the only way you can do it is to have these circumvented ways. If you just, it's the same idea with the Kubrick film, or like with the war film, if we wanted to talk about that. Like you couldn't just show the camera something bad and that like warrant itself. Like you can't just unsettle people. That's not enough. But that unsettling is a useful mechanism when done right, as a way to give some level of purchase to the vicissitudes of life, yada yada, just something like that. Like obviously, so the advancements in the medium are clearly good in some sense. But if a film's primary aim is to advance the medium, I'm not sure like where that even rests. Like that doesn't. Just that Troy was making the other comment earlier about like there's something potentially exonerating or like not evil about a film whose goal is to instill a sense of unsettling quality, and to do that they're inventing new ways of unsettling you filmically. Like to me, that does not seem like it's enough to warrant whether or not it is or is not an evil film. That just seems like a neutral statement.
The technical development at its own, on its own is sort of just agnostic or whatever, or carries no valence. Yeah. But I just wanted to comment, I guess, to bring it more home, surface level, that like we think about A24, Ari Aster, whatever, they really have, I think, technically developed the ability to unsettle the audience in new and novel ways that strike us as more rich. Mm-hmm. But there is, maybe the first time you see it, you're like, there's at least there's some pleasure or value or something in, maybe not in itself, but like it's like that's cool, like whatever. But then they just make like 20 more of them, and I think they're never a payoff.
I mean, whatever. I don't want to get into necessarily defending Ari Aster, but I feel like
I'm defending Ari Aster.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I don't understand the point.
I'm just saying, like, I think Ari Aster is kind of textbook makes evil movies. I haven't seen his new one. Well, but he's made a couple of them.
Yeah. That's just what I was gonna say. Is like as far as the technical innovations or whatever, it's like whatever. I think Beau is Afraid is pretty good. And it's like,
I haven't seen
that. He's not necessarily like the whatever. Sorry, that's
Well, I was just trying to defend his technical development.
Yeah, I want to respond to that and say that okay, this is getting back to the idea of like the aesthetification of film, like the really cool, unique filmic medium play things like that. Maybe that can be good. And look, I want to make a film one day. Of course, I care about that, but. It again, so this gets into like this system, or like how do we diagnose the system as an issue, whatever. But moving that to the side, we have an industry where a lot of up and coming people are way too into that. That is all they care about, and that is why films suck. Like that's a huge issue. It's just this disposition towards it that this is
equally pornographic.
That somehow justifies itself. Somehow that justifies itself that it's doing something unique with the medium. It's like that's not enough. I'm sorry.
I agree. I do think there's something kind of interesting about how it seems that not to say anything bad about Tarkovsky, but it is interesting that like Tarkovsky is kind of like the one guy that gets picked out by people who are currently into art films and like into contemporary art films, but don't really watch a lot of older stuff. It's like, I think there's something interesting about the fact that Tarkovsky gets picked out because as you're describing it, right, there's like this sort of this really heavy index into like atmosphere and like kind of a texture quality, like look and feel type thing going on that, Tarkovsky is obviously like, you know, hugely influential in like, you know, developing that further. And except whatever, obviously his movies, you know, most of them have like a lot more content like in the that those things are serving. But I don't know, I think that is kind of, I mean, I don't know, that's just a thought that I just had, that it's like I feel like he kind of survives in a way like he doesn't really in a way that like other directors don't really get brought up in the same way. Or it's like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you bring up like Tarkovsky, and then you bring up like, you know, people are like obsessed with like genre films and like recreating the aesthetic of genre films. Like they recognize
Subvert.
like, you know, the unique, interesting qualities of like, you know, spaghetti westerns or whatever that you can get, and then like applying that to their, you know, and like doing it almost better, but they're like shitty writing. Why is his writing shitty, Steven? Why, like, what do you like? Just, I mean, I guess that's kind of where my brain is going with all this.
Yeah.
It's just like we've talked about this, but it's like why can nobody write a drama?
Because no one reads.
You know,
Unironically,
Okay.
probably
Unironically.
significantly
That is-
related. Yeah.
yeah,
People who are
true.
making A24 movies have not been reading a bunch.
Or what they read are like for instance Eggers, like cool, you read like, I don't know, you read Nosferatu, or you read like the text that The Northman's based off of, or you got that Lighthouse thing, but then instantly in his mind he's like, that's it, I just need to translate that to film in my own unique Eggers aesthetic visual style, and that's sufficient. But unfortunately, like even in adaptations of things, like the adaptation has to like, it's always like doing more than just presenting the thing. In fact, the film we kind of don't like, but we also respect for trying to get it so true to the thing is Haneke's Kafka, The Castle. There was
The
something
Castle,
a little
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
there was something a little bit respectable about it, but ultimately we're like, no one's gonna watch that again. It's like we watch it when it's like, oh, okay, it's interesting, but like, so I'm not even saying like that's the ideal for what the adaptation should be, but like what should be understood is that the adaptation always gives the potential to like move the narrative forward a little bit more. It's always playing more, it's doing more. It doesn't mean change everything, but it means you're doing something new. You're creating a new object. And I think the biggest issue is like these guys, they read like the source material, and then they do the adaptation, and they don't really add anything different other than, again, just the aesthetic thing, because they haven't read a trillion other things that they can now synthesize a ton of different ways of telling a story and ideas and how a drama works. They can't actually synthesize all of this into something in this unconscious level. Instead, all they have is this aesthetic thing where they're just trying to do an import of a thing's content into the aesthetic language, and they just don't have this like this wellspring to draw from of like different dramas and how they've been done in the past.
Well,
They're
Other
not
than
like
that,
us.
They not like us. I feel like
Yeah, they're not
what's
like
kind of
us.
interesting is the I mean, maybe Ari Aster is not a great example because maybe his new movies actually, maybe it'll be good. I don't know.
Maybe
We'll
it's
see.
cool.
And maybe Beau's Afraid was like, you know, an improvement and movement away from the whatever the horror stuff. But so maybe he's like a standout example. But it's like, you know, he's, you know, he like loves like Bergman, and like he's like, you know, if you watch interviews with him, he's like, you know, talking all the time about like characters and stuff and whatnot, and he cares like kind of deeply about that. And it's like, I don't know, there is something weird about how like, I mean, so I don't know, maybe he's a bad example, but the point being, like, you can go watch interviews with some of these directors and hear them talk about the movies that they like, and a lot of them do talk about this drama stuff, but there is like, I don't know, there
Wait,
is
but
something. Go ahead.
But the issue is that they're not like so like, I don't even think like just watching a ton of Bergman movies is like actually like a super useful. I mean, it's like it is useful, but I think like to help you write a drama, I don't think it would be sufficient to just watch Bergman. Like, there's something about the fact that we're a culture that's several generations into only watching filmic content and video content, that we've kind of lost some element of like, I don't know, like the 1900 years, or like even, you know, obviously longer than that, but 1900 years of storytelling that wasn't filmic. Somehow we've kind of fully immersed ourselves in the filmic language of how to tell a story, and that has led to a deficit in how dramas can be made.
And now they could only tell movies. When they were making and they were innovating for movies, they could only think in terms of like images, in terms of like, and fucking like dude, fucking Eggers is like the like A student that you know is like secretly a retard. Like he fucking like is copying just bull crap, and it just always sucks. It's so fucking boring all the time. And he has been given an absolute gift. He's been given an audience. He has been given my attention. And what he does is he fucking doesn't speak from the heart. He doesn't give me himself. He doesn't...
What about The Lighthouse?
I haven't seen it. Fucking...
I like The Lighthouse.
Oh,
Lighthouse is also copied, is it not?
I don't know.
Well, it's an adaptation of a little poem.
Still, fuck it. That's still fucked up.
No,
So true. Brody's correct.
He isn't giving me himself. He's a fake auteur.
Well, Eyes Wide Shut is an adaptation of a book. And
dude,
so like adaptations can be good.
Fuck
But I agree with the
adaptations can be good, but he's not
I
speaking
agree
from
with
the
the point
heart.
that Eggers.
Okay,
yeah,
he's
I
not-
agree that he's not.
There's this whole...
He's
Well, no, his heart sucks.
He's not giving me. He's human. He's not human, bro. All these
He's got bad
people.
heart.
All these people aren't human.
Well, it's because, it's because he's thinking in terms of what would be Kino, right? In terms of all these, the aesthetic mindedness, the image mindedness. And I think that this extends beyond just like auteurs or whatever. Like it extends beyond A24 and Eggers and stuff and Ari Aster. Like there's even hints of it in like Dune, and like the new Dune movies and shit.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's presenting you
like a gladiator moment, right?
It's presenting you this like look at this image, and like isn't this image like so symbolically rich, and like
Look at this movie.
Aren't you feeling the ideas in this image? And like but what else was I gonna say?
That's what I feel
Let him cook. Let him chat.
Sorry.
I think I was just going to say some joke about. I want to say some joke about now authors are writing movies as books.
Right.
An author sits down to write a book, and they're thinking, what kind of movie do I want to put down on paper?
Yeah.
True. They used to tell stories. Now they tell movies.
Now they tell movies.
One last thing before John takes the floor. The fucking Eggers and Mr. Beast have the same problem. All Eggers can think about, is what is Kino.
They kind of look the same.
Is what is Kino. All Mr. Beast can think about is what gets me more views.
What is viral?
Both are not human. Both are actually symbolic of like the absolute commercialization of fucking this art form. And you can go back and you could say like, oh, like, maybe like the fucking, like the commercialization, like it was always impending, like it's just a system or some shit. If I was transported to Mr. Beast's body today, I would immediately start working at a grocery store and delete my YouTube channel. Okay, he is an agent in the same way that Eggers is an agent, Mr. Beast is an agent. Okay, he is still strapping himself to the fucking money machine. Okay, and he is strapping himself to the Kino machine, and he cannot get off that ride. Okay, you can, if you want to go deeper into the weeds and talk about culture, we're ignoring that bit, okay, because we were saying that he's an agent and he's capable of speaking from a human being perspective, and he can't do it. And he's been given the greatest gift of all time, which is a fucking audience. You can't get a greater gift than an audience, and you fucking don't do anything.
I think like well, the thing about all this stuff is just that it's just kind of like high concept, but trying to convince you that it's actually not high concept,
Mm-hmm.
like in the you know what I mean, in the sense of like it's working off of a premise and trying to think about and present this premise in like a sequence of images that are like Kino-maxed, but like it's trying to convince you that it's actually like a deep interpersonal like Like there's drama to it, and it's rich, right? But it's actually just, it's style over substance, as we were saying.
Well, yeah,
The
there's
premise
something,
and its outcomes.
kind of interesting about, like, I feel like in the commercial video world, there is sort of like this fetishizing of like telling a story, and how are we going to tell the story with images that, like, it's really weird, because it's like I don't know, I just think about I mean, I don't know, in my own work personally, like, I've started doing like things that are, I've actually kind of, I was more like kind of obsessing over the visual aspect of things, and I recently became just kind of a little bit disillusioned with that, and started just like, really focusing on just like, I don't really fucking care how it looks. Like, I just like need there to be, as long as like the feelings there, like the emotions there, and a lot of the time that's more about like what's happening in front of the camera rather than how it looks. And I feel like somebody who kind of epitomizes this is like Herzog or something, I mean, I feel like Safdie brothers do this well, but it's interesting, Safdie brothers still have this like really, really heavy aesthetic thing, but there is kind of like part of their aesthetic thing is sort of like this sort of just like, it should just look ugly. It should just look like they're just in the fucking room, and then it's like, kind of performance focused things, which I don't know. Basically, that's like kind of the opposite of the Nosferatu thing, which is just like you have this incredibly dramatic frame that implies this power dynamic that relates to the narrative, but there's, it's like there isn't the substance that then leads to that image, that makes the image like a synthesis of what you have kind of experienced through the characters and stuff to that point, so that image suddenly can take on, it's like it can further the thing rather than carry it, if you know what I mean. I don't know.
I think there's an issue with I think like there's something about like the modernist novels probably just like the best era of novels ever, and that the hallmark of like modernist novels is that they're like investigations into the narrators themselves, talking about their lives, to some degree, or to a significant degree, and with that came like all sorts of formal inventiveness, how to do that and things like that. But there was this dedication to the author as the character and things like that. And reading those books is really helpful, because I think that like it just gives you a wider understanding of like, I don't know, how people are, as retarded and basic as that sounds. If you read older texts, if you read something written in the 1300s or 1400s, you basically can only enjoy it from like a more sophisticated highbrow academic perspective, unless you're like super one in a trillion, like, I don't know, bro. You got to be like zooted if you care about any of that shit. That's just boring. That's just gonna be boring as hell to read the primary source on it. It's fun to read the Wikipedia about it. It's not fun to read it. And there's something, and it's about the difference in cultures and how time changes. It's not like the art is like literally worse or anything like that, but it's so the only reason I'm mentioning this, and I'll finish it very briefly, is if you're raised on watching films, the earlier films, like the earlier generation films, are reading more modernist novels and things like that, and they're coming up with stories because they have like a wider understanding of like what subjectivity is. And then you move away and away and away from writing or from reading, or all you read are like various pomo books that care way more about the medium's changes and how they're telling the story, way less so than the narrator themselves. They're constantly contriving characters, because they don't have this one-to-one access with themselves as a roundabout insert. And these contrived characters just run into a lot of issues when it comes to like how real they feel. The Safdie brothers obviously kind of like overcome this because they write a whole story about characters right before they make Good Time. Like they really flesh out the characters and give them a reality before they make the thing. Mm. And also it's set in New York. Both it and Uncut Gems are both set in New York, which is something they have like personal access to and tactile relationships to. a lot of these A24 films, people are just coming up with a setting that they're making look unsettling or kind of crazy, and there's no person. This is like kind of what Brody's saying. Like, it doesn't come from the heart because it's purely just a work of like contrived imagination, but their imagination isn't even attenuated by like a whole history of other subjectivities.
So true.
So that's where like reading the modernist novels like really helpful, and I don't think we do that nearly as much, or a lot of people don't anymore.
I feel like the point about the Safdie brothers thing is actually super interesting because it is like their, you know, relationship to film and like how they're treating it is really like, you know, kind of like let's create it like an actual situation and the camera is there to capture it, you know, as opposed to let's manufacture something for the camera.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the manufacturing for the camera, it's kind of like if you truly kind of build everything from the ground up, it's like, yeah, you really have to fucking like that has to come from somewhere. And it's like, you know, if you're making, you know, the fourth version of Nosferatu, it's like where it's coming from. It's like you're I mean, I feel like, yeah, Eggers kind of fills his films with, you know, the historical accuracy thing, you know, to build the world, and that meaning that it's like he kind of like outsources the imagined world to this historical accuracy thing as opposed to like Herzog. Like it's really interesting comparing like, you know, Herzog's Nosferatu to, which I don't know if anybody's seen, but it's like, you know, it's like, you know, it's just like obviously a fucking movie and like it's obviously like, you know, fake and staged, but there's like, you know, I think, you know, when he goes to the castle, it's like it's Bruno Ganz too, which is cool. Like when he goes to the castle, it's like way fucking scarier than in Robert Eggers, and it's because there's like, you know, Herzog doesn't need to perfectly fill in the whole world because he's like, you know, after, you know, instead he's like, you know, he like recognizes kind of like the essential things that you need, that like, you know, a viewer actually connects with and cares about, you know, in the film, and then he's like, I'm just gonna get those in front of the camera, and that's just what I need in order to make the movie.
Yeah, I mean, to analogize it really briefly, if you think of Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man or any modernist novel, okay, you don't get to do the romantic. Okay. Portrait of the Artist. You do not get a fleshed out image of the room he's in at any given time. You're only given the perspective of the character and noticeable details that matter psychically to the person that one would detect anyways. You do not need a fully fleshed out world. Less is more. That is exactly the opposite. That's the innovation of the modernist novel, because it's always based on what is the psychological reality of what's going on. You compare this to like a Flaubert or the Proust, like these books that people love, and perhaps there's a lot of genuine merit to them, and there's elements that are great. One issue though is like they have this flowery language. The flowery language is there to really flesh out the world for you and really give you a sense of the setting. I just want to, at every room I enter into, I want to really sense the setting that I'm in and have a totality to it. But that leads to like an overbearing sense of like you're telling me way too much. Less is more. You know, that no human psyche relates to a setting that way. You relate only to the things that are impactful to you. And then one other brief comment is, I really think that film today is probably suffering the same thing that fiction is, which is basically like, or at least maybe fiction was, maybe it's finally getting out of it, but that's like Pomo fiction gets made fun of, and for good reason. There can be standouts that are really good, but Pomo fiction cared way too much about formal innovation. That's what it cared about. It cared about how can we tell a story in a different way. And it lost sight of like the fact that the book still has to be read by a human and like what a story is meant to do, things like that, yada, yada. Instead, and same thing with like these aesthetic films, it's like they care about making, you know, they've aestheticized the film. They're finding new ways to do things. They're making things look better. All these innovative practices have progressed, but that seems to be the only thing that they really care so much about. You don't even get the Gigapomo, the true Gigapomo, which is unwatchable, which we all watched, is Colors of Pomegranates. It's literally unwatchably, like, you're never going to watch that again, even if we all hail it as like, oh, it's like a very interesting, inventive thing. That's not what like a good movie is. We can say it's good for the logbook that it got made, but you don't want that to be like the staple of like what a good film is. So like that's an extreme case of this, but I'm saying like in a more kind of like IV drip into your body.
Yeah.
The aesthetic thing has kind of reigned supreme, and people care more about differences and things like that than they do about just telling a story. I mean, as simple as basic as it is.
I like this. I like this narrative, and I like this idea. I think it's fairly explanatory and grand enough to feel just right. I agree with Brody's point. Like, there's an element of where these people, right, what's evil about them, right? They're part of some phenomenon or whatever, but it's like what you desire in them is to properly appreciate the responsibility they have to like the audience, the culture, film, beauty itself. But this other point is somewhat exculpatory in that it's like movies and stories, right? The language itself, it's become so complicated, and in some sense it's just a trend, right? It's like, you know, Pomo and all these things, because I like that idea a lot. But also it's like Pomo is like way more complicated than modernist literature in a way. Not in like a deep psychic way,
right.
but at a technical level,
Yeah.
it's so much more sophisticated. And I think that I would imagine that no matter what responsibility these people feel, I imagine that it is just more sophisticated feeling, at least, to tell a story today or make a film today, where it's like you can't just make a modernist film anymore. That's cringe, bro. That's 30 years old. Like, everything needs to be right. I mean, just appreciate the critical sphere today, right? It's all highly academic, highly educated, you know, Pomo literate people, and it's like the film can't be the modernist film we all love, like
Godfather,
not can't,
whatever, yada yada,
you know,
or
but
whatever.
just all these cultural forces is just to say, like, from the POV of the artist, the arteur wannabe today, the obvious answer is like, well, make what your heart tells you. But like at a cognitive level, I think that they are burdened by how sophisticated the story of a film is today versus
for sure.
even just 20 years ago.
I'm not. I get it, and I'm on board. That being said, I'm not totally convinced of this. I watched The Brutalist, and I'm like, this director hates me, and he wants me to die. The Brutalist director is coming up to me on the movie screen and flexing $101 bills and spreading it across his arm, saying, "Look what I got. Check me out." And I'm like, this is nothing, you peewee. I'm here to be your friend. Me in this movie, we're supposed to be friends, and we're supposed to have a good time together. And instead, you're flexing $1 bills at me, trying to say that you're very smart. I don't care.
With you, Brody. I'm so with you. And I haven't seen that, but I did see an interview that maybe John will be able to recall, where this guy comes off as like the biggest loser piece of shit of all time.
Yeah, so just to conclude it, right? It's like yes, it's like we can all have sympathy for the director and being like, oh yeah, man, it must be so hard to make a movie right now, dude. Like, you know, there's a lot going on.
I don't think
it's like okay, yes, but I get it, but also like, why does it look like you hate me? Why couldn't it be hard and you try to do something difficult? And I'm like, oh man, this guy's really going through, like, it's pretty hard to make a movie. Damn, that's crazy. And he really gave it a go. And he's like, from the heart. It's like, no, you hate me. You hate me, and want to flex on me and to show me that you're very smart and you're not.
Oh, I feel like
Why do you
Brady. I feel like Brady Corbett, he. I don't know, just to relate
gets
it
no
back
pussy.
to this like Pomo thing. He definitely gets his wife is whatever. He's definitely not getting any pussy from his wife.
From his partner.
From his partner.
From his
partner. He's definitely got a partner, and not a wife.
Eggers hates me too.
No. But I'm saying that. I mean, I'm sure he does. But I
think Eggers doesn't care about you.
I think Eggers. Okay, I think Brady Corbet is like he's making what he thinks. Like I think he is thinking in the same terms that Troy is, but it just like he's retarded.
Well, but
Yeah, I think
so-
he's
so-
done that.
so-
Like I
so
think
I
he
didn't-
is. Like
so I wanna say-
like I think he is trying to make The Godfather and all this stuff. Like he is trying
Right.
to
Right.
make the modernist film. I think he is trying to do that, but at the same time, there still is.
No. To
ahead.
Troy's point, though, we can pair that up. So this is actually evidence for Troy's point. Is just that the person who's going to stand out to try to make the modernist film, because they're facing all this. There's all these like, unconscious, conscious, strange relationships you have to like what you can make. The person who goes out to make that movie is not going to be like the average cool dude or the eccentric like auteur. It's just going to be an asshole who like just has to have his like, he has to like measure his dick the whole time in order to even like, you need that kind of like narcissist to even bother to make that film, because there's facing so many like impositions or something like that. So we can still kind of exonerate him to some degree, and just be like, well, the reason that character type is who's going to make the modernist film in a Pomo film era. Like it makes sense. Like that's even more.
Can you
yeah.
compare? Can you compare what he's doing to like what the Safdie brothers do? Like, can you draw a line? Like, because like the category of like or basically. Never mind. The right question is like, where does something like what the Safdie brothers make fall within this like Pomo versus modernist film?
New sincerity.
Right.
New sincerity.
Old sincerity.
Actually, that's old sincerity. That's actually not bad.
So
Good old sincerity.
So the comparison, I don't know. So I haven't seen what's it called?
The
Brady
Brutalist.
What is it called?
Brutalist.
Oh, yeah,
Brutalist.
Brutalist.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I've
you
only
get
seen
it.
the
You get it. You don't need to see it to you're
The
you know it.
stupidest.
Yeah,
I mean,
you understand it.
for one, he has this dick on his shoulders that he needs to make a long movie for fucking no reason. It's not like that's not what anyone cares about. So he's just stunted in terms of like what he thinks people like, and he just sucks. And somehow they just greenlit him a bunch of times.
It's not
Like
a good example because the guy sucks.
Yeah, that's the issue. It'd be interesting to find I don't know, like that one. Well, I don't know, we haven't seen him, but like people, the Grand Beauty or the Great Beauty director who I've not seen. I've not seen his self-insert film. Which one is it? It's like Hand of God, I think. I'm not sure though. But that's like one of his films is literally a self-insert like autobio. We should all watch that and see what it is, because that's going to be like modernist core, right? Just on its very premise. So even though he's doing interesting things with the medium, it seems like he has an attention to storytelling that's totally different than all this like just aesthetic jerking off thing. Even though he has such an attention to aesthetic, so he is clearly like someone who's just synthesizing it correctly. Like he is next level. He is crazy. He is moving.
This guy's drowning in it.
He's moving things forward in a way that's
he is moving his penis into the pussy.
Yes. Dude, Parthenope is so beautiful. Oh my god, dude, I just want to love
right.
Parthenope, bro.
I'm feeling pretty good about wrap up time.
Yeah.
Damn, this shit.
Do I feel good about the pod? I don't know.
No, you don't.
Is it bedtime? Yes.
You don't feel good about the pod?
I feel all right about the pod.
Well, what do you feel?
I think it
maybe
went
that's how we
down.
can wrap up.
We can do a little how we all feel about the pod. I think the pod went pretty well. I think it went a slightly worse than expected, but big picture strikes me as, well, yeah, I should have expected it to go like this when the topic is as amorphous and ungrounded as this one is.
And unprepped for.
I think.
I thought we were doing cozy movie pod.
Even if it was cozy movie pod, and it's like, I think in general when you want to have a pod with this topic where it's more quote unquote serious and stuff like this, it tends not to just feel as good because it's not as funny, and everyone is trying to really bring to bear their best contributions, which is awesome, but then leaves you not feeling as happy as like a really funny pod or like a really focused pod. But I feel good. I'm happy, and I think this is a good like part 1 of 10.
Who else? Who goes next?
I think it went probably worse than expected. Echoing that one. And I'm all I can dream about right now is 2 things. One, how am I gonna chop this one up in the editing room, or what am I gonna tell Rajesh to, for when I
True.
ship this off to him. And also, to all the young filmmakers out there, just
Never
give up, and please, please, for the love of God, don't hate me. Make a movie and try
Please
not to
don't-
hate me.
Yeah,
Love me.
love.
Why
me.
do you hate me? To all the young filmmakers listening to this, why do you hate me?
Yeah.
My retrospective on this pod is that it went perfectly fine. And if you were expecting more than this on a Thursday night in the 4HL, I really don't know what to tell you.
The 4HL.
That's honestly, I feel the same. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it went pretty well. I feel like we opened up a lot of interesting topics, things that this is a topic that we have, actively shut down instantly anytime it comes up because we don't want to deal with it. And so, I feel like for having it be the final opening of that box, it's like, I think it's a rough start, but we got to some interesting ideas. I feel like there's a lot to think about for round 2 of 10.
Round 2, everyone's going to have their 500-word essay ready.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. My retrospective is it went exactly as I expected. It did not go very well. But that's okay. I'm glad we did it. It broached the subject, and I think next time the most important thing we do, even if we don't do the 500-word essay prep, we start smaller and have fun. Really like just even this like consequentialist intention thing. Like there's so many things we skirted over that we could have like really delved into, and they're not boring because we can bring up lots of examples and be like, well, that doesn't match with how you appreciate this. Well, that doesn't match how you appreciate that. That could have been a fun, like investigation into like actually developing our ideas. And I think that's maybe where we should begin next time. A little more focused and a little more particular, and move slower intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a good story,
Right.
we need to start
also-
with the specifics.
Yeah.
So true.
Start with.
I'd like to apologize for the amount of non sequiturs I had during the podcast. I feel like I was, due to not knowing how to respond or talk about things, was just trying to, just air out whatever was on my mind.
This is another non sequitur.
This is another non sequitur.
Yeah, John,
Which I am also now going to apologize for.
John, I think it's okay. Ultimately, you will have to pay for it the most in your eternal return.
Yeah, this is so true.
That will be far
actually.
more painful than anything
Yeah.
we have to
I think
do as
the
an audience.
worst. The worst. This is so true. Nobody will give a literal fuck about what I said and how I said it and how it didn't go anywhere besides me when I listen to the podcast. Once Brody finishes, or once Rajneesh
Raj
I-
Petit.
editing it. Once Patesh finishes editing this one.
Time to watch. Brody, can you scroll down just a smidge? It is time to watch $2 burgers in Harlem, street food
Oh
icons.
yes, it happened again.
Everyone listening to
No.
this, if there's anyone listening to this, it's 100% a person who knows what that video is. All right.
All right. Well, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I've stopped recording.